Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today we have a special guest, Matt Rej, one of the founders of Merchant Cost Consulting, a company that specializes in helping businesses, including orthodontic practices, save on credit card processing fees. We'll dive into what led him to start Merchant Cost Consulting, how his company can assist with fee negotiations, and practical tips for managing these costs. Let's get into it. By now, we all know I talk to a lot of doctors and give advice to practices in every stage of their life cycle. And one question my docs ask all the time is, who do you recommend for marketing to attract more new patients from the internet? My answer? Easy. I have been recommending Mary Kay Miller and her team at Kaleidoscope for the better part of a decade. Why? They are thorough, professional, and transparent. Kaleidoscope Digital Marketing is who you want to talk to because they understand how to market in the orthodontic world and they offer tools that are affordable and easy to use. I'm telling you, if you're looking to step up your digital presence, Kaleidoscope should be your first call. Go to contactkl.com to request your free digital marketing consultation. That's contactkl.com. Hey, Matt, thanks so much for being on Hey Docs today with me. I'm super excited to have you on. This is going to be a great topic. I get questions about merchant service and cost and fees all the time. So I'm wondering if you could start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and the company.
Yeah, Jill, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I guess a little bit about myself and MCC, like how we started, right? So I didn't go to school for credit card processing. I don't think actually anyone goes to school for credit card processing, right? I was actually a business major in supply chain management, so completely irrelevant topic, right? So in short, my first job out of school was working for a credit card processing company. I had a friend that was working there, said it was a good sales job, sounded interesting, young crowd, etc. So that's where the journey began, right? But then working my way up the corporate ladder, you start peeling back the layers of how credit card processing works, right? You see a lot of things. And as a sales rep in the payments industry, right, you're compensated by the higher you set a rate on a customer, the more money you're obviously making, right? So it's not advantageous for our customers, right? And it didn't align with business owners. Additionally, like it was super deceptive of how payments works, which we'll get into. But in short, rates are always increasing. They're always adding different fees onto your statement. One statement looks different than another. So it's super complex. And the reason MCC started was because we were actually drinking at a Christmas party. All great ideas come from drinking at a Christmas party, right?
And a bar napkin.
Yeah, in a bar napkin, right? It's so cliche, but it's true. And the short story was, we said to ourselves, we can leverage our ability and knowledge of payments to help businesses actually bring some transparency to it without the headache of having to change who they were processing with. Because we would get phone calls, Matt, what's this fee? Why is this happening? It wasn't us. It was the corporate company just adding additional rates. So we were like, there's a better way to do this. So that's how the inception of Merchant Cost Consulting started and how it's blossomed today. So knowing the ins and outs, now being on the other side of the fence, helping businesses reduce costs wherever they possibly can with their existing provider is the goal. And that's the long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, that's wonderful. I always love knowing how people got into it. And I appreciate that, especially for our industry, that you saw a need and I know advocate for doctors and for practices just to make sure that somebody is watching out for them out there. Because I can tell you after 30 plus years in this industry and working with multiple practices, there is nobody really out there wanting to make sure that the doctor stays safe besides people like you out there. So thanks for that.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about our industry specifically and how you guys help our practices and what that looks like and what that means and what you're looking for there.
Yeah, totally. Specifically for orthodontists, right? They all use some type of practice management software, right? You can go down the line, Ortho 2, Tops, Cloud9, the list goes on, right? Wave, OrthoTrack, etc. So regardless if you use a practice management system or not, which most of them do, there's typically an integrated credit card processing company that works with the practice management software, right? And there are plenty of practices that just have the software and then they have a third-party credit card processing company, right? So it just depends on how your practice is set up. I've seen both sides of the fence. The ones that have the integration like it because it alleviates manual error of double entry into the practice management system, reconciliation, uploads to the patient chart. So there's a convenience to that for sure. And then I've seen the flip side of the fence where the doctor doesn't necessarily care about that manual error or human entry. They just want the lowest overall cost, which I'll get to in a second, right? So for the integrated systems, if you're using the credit card processing company that integrates with your practice management software, I will tell you that there is a fine line between paying for that premium inconvenience versus price gouging. You should pay a premium to have that convenience where everything's integrated into one system, but there is a line that needs to be drawn into the sand of how much of a premium do I have to pay for this?
Right.
And this goes for ACH transactions as well as credit card processing. So for the orthodontic industry in particular, most doctors do have that integration. So we're dealing with that integrated credit card processing company. And to preface this, like nothing changes when we do our work, right? You're not switching practice management systems. You're not switching credit card processing companies. We're going through your merchant statements with a fine tooth comb, looking for padded rates, billing errors, PCI compliance costs, monthly fees that shouldn't be there. Is there a way to optimize these fees and modify them, right? And we're really just using our data to leverage based on the market, where you should be priced based on where everyone else is priced, right? And for the non-integrated orthos out there that don't have it with their system, that's a little bit different in the aspect of you can get substantially better pricing with that because you're not paying for that premium, right? So there's a push and pull depending on what's going to work for your practice. That's essentially what we do on a day-to-day basis. So you're an orthodontic practice, you come to me, I want to let everyone know it's irrelevant of who you're using or how you're integrated, right? We can work with both ways. That does play a factor, though, in the savings that we might get you, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you can speak to, because I work with a lot of startups and I work with a lot of existing practices, and I know that our fees and maybe even costs can vary a little bit depending upon volume and all of that. But I'm wondering if you can give us some averages. So if I've got a doc that's listening, and whether they're a startup or an existing, and maybe you could just give us some things that if you can speak to it, on average, if you're a this size practice, you should be expecting this percentage or this much in fees or whatnot. And maybe even if you could break down maybe some of the things that we should be paying attention to. And if a doc were pulling out their statement and saying, wow, I haven't even really, I know this is that part of the business that's not, you guys hear me say it all the time, not the sexy part of the business, but who wants to really go through their credit card financing statement? But maybe you could also talk about some of those hidden fees that we should be aware of. Would you mind giving us a peek behind the curtain there on some of those?
Totally. This is going to be a fully loaded segment.
Perfect.
I'm going to try to keep it light and as engageable as I can because you're right.
Sure.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's super boring. It's daunting. It's almost like you hear credit card processing. It's a trigger word for a lot of a lot of owners, right? So let's answer your first question, right? The average that you should be paying as a doctor. So if you look on your merchant statement, regardless of who you're using, you want to find the total fees that were debited out of your account, and you want to divide that number by the total sales that you processed or collections in just credit cards, right? And if that number comes around 2.3%, you're priced well. That doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. It just means you're in a good spot, right? Anything over than that, you should look at and say, okay, Matt, there's things that we need to look at here. What can we do to improve this? So that's the average that we'd like to see. Getting into the weeds of this, right? So there's a lot to unpack here. Let's just start out with some basic fees that you as a doctor can look at on your statement to avoid, right? So the biggest thing is PCI compliance. Everyone knows about this. It's a super annoying fee. It is real. It's real, but it's fake, And here's what I mean by that is that you do need to be compliant with accepting credit cards. That is 100% true. How you're storing credit card data for all the doctors that are doing recurring payments, you have to store that data correctly because it mitigates fraud and risk of a data breach, for example, where that credit card information is then sent off to the world and people can access your patient's data. That's why it exists. However, PCI compliance, these processing companies are charged a fee in the background for it, typically $120, and then they have to pass that fee on to you. But there's a non-compliance fee that you'll see on the statement. So it'll say PCI non-compliance. And that fee can range just depending on what the processing company wants to charge, right? So if you are not compliant with storing credit cards correctly, they're going to charge you a fee for that. And they're going to charge you that fee every single month until you become compliant. I've seen this fee range anywhere from $30 a month up to $250 a month.
Wow.
So it's drastic, and it just depends on the processing company that you use. And it's a super easy fee to avoid if you just become PCI compliant, right? Now, that within itself can be pretty difficult because if you try to become PCI compliant, there's a survey that you have to take. There's a laundry list of questions that you have to answer correctly. And if you don't answer them correctly, you're not PCI compliant. So we help our clients do that to avoid this fee. But if you do it on your own, or your IT department does it, make sure they do it so you can avoid that monthly fee. That's number one. The other one is, we call it an auto-enrollment monthly fee. And the name of what that fee is varies by processing company. For example, you may see a fee on your statement that says analytics fee or CE Suite analytics fee. There's so many, but it's a monthly charge that can range anywhere from $10 to $50 a month. And what they do is when you sign the contract with your credit card processing company, there's a little box that your sales rep checks off that says, by signing this agreement, you agree to be auto-enrolled after 3 months into this monthly fee. Here's what that monthly fee is. And 99 out of 100 times, the doctor has no idea what that value-added service is, right? And it's just a monthly fee and a way for these guys to make an additional cost on your statement. And Jill, you see this all the time with the cable companies, right? It's a very similar industry, except I would tell you that credit card processing is probably magnified 10x because there's so many other fees. You know what I'm saying? So those are two main ones that you can literally call into your processing company, say, I want these removed, yada, yada, yada. And that's a cost savings right off the bat.
Perfect.
I guess the third part of this segment is behind the curtain, the hidden fees, the miscellaneous costs, etc. And let me break this down as basic as I can. So there's fees that you can negotiate. There's fees that you cannot when it comes to credit card processing. The fees that you cannot are called interchange rates. So Jill, if you go into your wallet right now and you took out your JetBlue credit card, for example, JetBlue puts a rate on that credit card that's non-negotiable. Can't do anything about it. That rate is basically what pays for your frequent flyer miles or your rewards programs or your cash back. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to tell you that the JetBlue card, the cost of it is 2%. So every time that you use your JetBlue card at a restaurant, that restaurant's being charged 2% no matter what. Okay. So what happens is that 2% gets charged to the processing company. The processing company then passes that charge on to the doctor, orthodontic practice. Okay. What the processing company does is, because they're a middleman, technically, they charge a markup, a service fee to allow you to process that credit card payment from your patient to your business, right? So your practice gets charged 2%. And then in addition to that, Global Payments, I should say, processing company charges additional fees for that. And that is almost like the Wild West. They can charge whatever they deem necessary or whatever they want, really. If you think you're getting a good deal, but you're really not, it's irrelevant to them. You know what I mean? So to take a step back, as it pertains to startups, most startups get put on very poor pricing from the beginning because the processing company makes it seem like it's a really good deal. But if you peel back the layers of it, it's really not. And it's not until that startup grows and starts processing a year later and finds out, wow, I just paid $40,000 in credit card processing fees. You know what I mean? And even with the other side of the fence, if you're an existing practice, you've been doing it forever, you got set up for your practice management system, you're integrated with credit card processing, it's all great, but you've never wanted to look at this cost because it's a trigger word and it's daunting. But then you look at it and it's, wow, I just paid $100,000 in credit card processing fees. Imagine if you could reduce that by 60%. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So those service markup fees, they're all over the place. And there's different names for them, depending on the processing company that you use. And even those non-negotiable fees that we talked about, interchange rates, you'll see processing companies pad those. So to take that JetBlue card, for example, if you were paying, if the card is 2%, the processing company might pad that and put an extra 0.5% on top of it, in addition to the service markup fees. And as a doctor, it's almost like you need a PhD to know credit card processing and realize which fee is real, which fee is fake, which ones can be modified, what is the ceiling or the floor that these fees can go to. You know what I mean? So those are a lot of the nuances, like behind the curtain, that we're dealing with when we look at your reports and try to find cost savings for you. So
Yeah.
long-winded answer to your question.
No, that's great. And I would like to talk a little bit, kind of circle back around to a little bit about what you said with startups, because a lot of docs that are listening on this show are younger doctors, brand new into this. And one of the things that I am continually running up against with the docs is the fact, and you alluded to this just a little bit, is that when we are first getting going, we're choosing our operating systems. I do try and advocate for integrated merchant services in the beginning, just because we usually have new team members and new doctors. And like you said, like that human error, I've seen it too many times where somebody thinks they're charging the credit card on this area and never put it into the operating system, or vice versa. And there's enough to learn in doing a new practice already. But I think the thing that is so frustrating and tough that I think doctors really run into, again, going back to what you were talking about, is the fact that we don't have any merchant service history. So to a point, you feel like you are at the mercy of these merchant service companies, depending upon the software that you're signing up for and the rates that they're going to give you. And what I feel like when I help docs review their initial credit card processing statements and what the company is saying they're going to do is, they don't necessarily line item out all of the things that they're actually going to be charging you for. And you don't tend to see those fees start to show up until 4, 5, 6 months later. And again, most of the time, docs aren't really scrutinizing those because they don't really know what to look for. So I'm curious if you could give us any suggestions or help there. And maybe if you could even give us some suggestions on negotiating, because my answer for doctors is usually, and you're going to hate this answer, but sometimes I'm like, we just have to do our best to negotiate the best that we can do. But again, we don't have a lot of leverage, knowing that at minimum, after a year to 3 years after you've started your practice, you have to get with somebody to renegotiate these rates, because now you've got that history. So can you give us some help here? Because I know I've got a lot of docs sitting on the edge of their seat going, okay, what's he going to say? Hey docs, let's talk about consumer experience for a minute, specifically the kind of experience where you purchase an item or a service that you've been excited about only to be let down or disappointed by the actual product or experience. Not a good way to start a relationship. That's why relationships are so highly valued at GC Orthodontics, because they are truly dedicated to the orthodontic specialty. GC Orthodontics is a leading provider of TOMI orthodontic appliances, quality products that have serviced the orthodontic community for well over 50 years. They are focused on providing total solutions that include both digital and analog orthodontic treatment modalities, like brackets, indirect bonding, and clear aligners. It's time to build a long-term relationship with a company that is dedicated to delivering total solutions to your practice. Visit GC Orthodontics at www.gcorthodontics.com go.gcamerica.com/Jill Allen and see why countless leading clinics have made the switch. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
Yeah, totally. So let's look at this for a second. So even when I was a sales rep selling credit card processing, we would get phone calls all the time of new businesses, right? Now, naturally, and this is what all processing companies do, is they're going to give that new business, I hate to say it, but the worst pricing, because they'll make more money on it, right? Now, at my old job, we had to submit a pricing addendum or a pricing review if we wanted to give a new business a really good deal. Like, we would have to go to our boss and say, hey, this new business, I want to put them on XYZ pricing so they could keep track of it, right? And it got to the point where I was doing that so many times I got yelled at. It's stop doing that. Stop giving these people a deal. Side note. But anyways, so I guess that the moral of that story is to tell you that it is possible to get really good pricing even as a starter. You don't have to leverage sales volume or anything like that. You just need to know what you're looking for. You know what I mean? That's the biggest difference. So for an example, when a startup goes and gets a quote from a credit card processing company, right? There's 6 different pricing structures that are out there, which makes it even more confusing. But most of the time, processing companies are going to offer what's called tiered pricing, also known as bundled pricing. And if you're a doctor listening to this, if you see that or hear that, run the other way, because that's what makes on the worst pricing structure, where you look 12 months later, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I paid this much. And how tiered pricing works is that there's usually 3 to 6 tiers of a rate that they'll assign based on the type of card that you accept. So if you take a debit card at your practice, if you take a normal credit card at your practice, if you took a rewards card at your practice, they're going to offer you a different rate. What a lot of people don't understand is that if you took a rewards card, let's just say, they're going to charge you the basic introductory rate, it might be like 1.7%, plus another rate on top of it that they'll call a non-qualified rate, which is like 2.5%. They'll combine it. So really, for that transaction, you're being charged a 4% fee versus what you thought you were going to be charged. And the issue is that they don't explain that well enough to you to make you realize how much you're actually going to be charged. You know what I mean? There's also flat rate pricing that's out there. So a lot of businesses, or I should say a lot of processing companies and integrated service providers, are offering this because it's super easy for you, the doctor, to understand. It's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to charge you 2.75% regardless of the type of card that you accept. Doesn't matter if it's debit, doesn't matter if it's credit. That's what you're going to be charged. And as a doctor, you might like that because it's, hey, I know this is what I'm being charged every single month. I can forecast whatever, and that's great. The problem with flat rate pricing is that if you took a debit card, let's go back to the example about the JetBlue credit card, right? There's 750 different interchange rates that are out there, and they all fluctuate. Debit cards are the least expensive card because there is no rewards program associated to it. So there's no need to have a high interchange rate associated to it, right? So when you take a debit card at your practice, for the purpose of this example, let's just say that's only 0.5%. But if your processing company is charging you 2.75%, and a debit card only costs 0.5%, that means they're making the difference of that in their profit margin or revenue, whatever you want to call it. And that's a big difference when you're talking about if you took $150,000 worth of debit transaction. And that's obviously how the processing companies make their money. And So I guess it depends, right? If you're a startup, you're not going to know the types of cards that you're accepting. We know after looking at thousands of orthodontic practice, it's a good healthy mix, 50-50, 60-40 of credit to debit. So you're going to take a healthy amount of debit cards because HSA cards, insurance cards fall into that category. You know what I mean? And it's not like it's like you walk into a doctor's practice, maybe it's a copay, maybe it's just a one-time payment or a deposit, maybe a $500 deposit, then we'll put you on the reoccurring charges, right? So some people opt to put debit cards on that versus credit cards. So there's a lot of reasons behind it. But in short, that's the difference with flat rate pricing. Now, as a startup, you want to ask for interchange plus pricing. This is the shoe dropping. So doctors listening to this.
Yeah, let's say that one more time. One more time.
Interchange plus pricing is what you want to ask for. And a good example of it, I always use Mark Cuban's new company. It's a pharmacy company where it's called I think it's called Cost Plus Company. And in short, it's the cost of the drug plus a 15% markup. And that is what interchange plus pricing. It's the same concept. You get the interchange rate. So in the example of the JetBlue card, it's 2%, plus a markup. And the markup is dictated by the processing company that you're working with. That's the best pricing structure because it's one, the most transparent. Based on every single card that you accept, what the interchange rate is going to be. They should list it out on your statement, and then you'll know what the markup is that your processing company is charged, right? So that's what you want. Now, a company can put you on interchange plus pricing. That's great. There are plenty of other fees that they can try to make up, right, in the background to make up the difference in cost. And that's what you really have to be aware of. So it's one thing to get a good deal, even if you're not a startup, even if you have an existing business, you're on interchange plus pricing. That doesn't mean that you still have good pricing. You know what I mean? That means you're on the right pricing structure, but if there's 10 other fees that they're marking up substantially, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But interchange plus is a good start if you're a startup business that you can request or ask for to at least start off.
Yeah, that's such good information. And again, it's such muddy waters out there. And I loved your phrase Wild West, because I do feel like that's what it is from one doctor to another. And sometimes it's interesting to hear you say, but it probably totally is dependent upon who the salesperson is that they're talking to and where that is at, which is unfortunately sad to hear also for all my docs out there. We haven't talked much about it, but we do use a lot of ACH in our industry. And I'm wondering if you can, these are big words, merchant services, credit card processing, terminal charges, all of these different things. But I'm wondering if you can talk just a little bit about the ACH component and if there are things that we should be paying attention to also if we have a merchant service company that can handle both of those for us.
Totally. So I always recommend if you can take as much ACH as possible, you will save your practice a ton of money.
Agreed.
Because at baseline, you're not paying the interchange rate, right? So ACH is it's much more or less expensive. Now, it goes back to if you have an integrated system or not. So let's just take the ones that don't have an integrated system. If you're using your bank or a third-party processing company, they can do ACH very inexpensive. No percentage rates allocated to it, just a transaction fee every time you process an ACH. And that's going to save you a ton of money. If you have an integrated system, a lot of them are going to try to charge you more because, again, that premium convenience, right? Doing it all in one place, which, again, is true. But with ACH, you can leverage the fact that you can go to your bank and do ACH processing. So if they're trying to add percentage markups, things like that for your ACH processing, that's something that the red flag needs to go off.
Yeah.
There are probably monthly fees associated to it and setup costs, which is pretty normal. But I would always and I tell doctors this too. So if you have patients already on credit cards, it's going to be tough to get those patients to go to ACH, to switch, right? But if you can give them the agreement when they sign up for your practice, the option just to do ACH and not credit cards, and then if they really give you some pushback, you can always fall back onto the credit card. But if moving forward, any new patient that comes in, you can get them on ACH, that is
Yes. And I cannot agree with you more on this. And I speak to doctors a lot about this. If we think about just how we as consumers transact, most of the time, if we're going to go out to the healthcare or the health club or the tanning salon or all these different places, they really do encourage you and push that the option is a draft out of your checking or savings. And docs, just in general, we're probably less likely to have default on payments when we've got it coming out of a checking account. Yes, there are issues if we do have that, because that just means they truly don't have money in their checking account. We don't have to worry about credit cards expiring and being over the limit and all those different things. But my point to that is, as you are saying as well, watching the cost, if it costs us 25 cents or 50 cents to run an ACH payment, and if you're running 50 payments a month, I'm just pulling numbers here out of my head, but you can look at that. That was such a minimal fee. And then, like you were saying, if a patient really wants to be on a credit card, I've even encouraged doctors to pass on a transaction fee of, that's fine, we'll put you on it, but we're gonna add an additional 3% to the cost of doing business or whatnot. And a lot of times that's just enough where patients will be like, yeah, all right, then I'll go ahead and give you my ACH information. But again, when you're looking at those business costs, what a way to help keep those costs down.
Totally. Yeah, totally. It's highly encouraged.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, you've been awesome at just giving us really good meat and potatoes behind the scenes information here. Let's talk a little bit about how you help with this, and how, if a doctor's saying, gosh, this sounds great, but I don't know that I can do this, myself. And Matt's given us some good information. I'm not sure about that. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys make money, how you help practices? Does it make sense for a startup doc to call you versus an existing practice? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. It's always that age-old question, right? You're either a do-it-yourselfer or you outsource it, right? Like,
Sure.
yes, I could landscape my whole lawn if I really wanted to, but if I don't want to do that, then I'm going to hire a landscaper, right? It's same concept for this as an existing practice or startup practice, right? It's like you have so many things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Inventory, supplies, personnel, working actually on your craft. There's so many things involved, right? And yeah, you hire staff to do part of these things for you, but it's just too much, right? So credit card processing is one of hundreds of things that you as a doctor have to worry about. And because it's a trigger word and because it's such a nuisance and people don't like dealing with it, it's one of those expenses that gets left off to the wayside. And then you look at it and it's, I can't believe I just paid this. So for us, we're really for the people that they want to save money and they want help doing it, right? Anyone can negotiate with any one of your vendors. It doesn't matter. Credit card processing aside, you can negotiate gloves, etc. But I think the biggest difference for us is, we're leveraging a lot of the knowledge that we have to make sure that you're on the best deal. But the other aspect of this is, even if you're a doctor and you're a do-it-yourself type of person, getting a good deal is only half the battle. It's keeping that deal in place, which is really the value add, right? So Merchant Cost Consulting's business model is we help our doctors reduce the fees that they pay with their existing provider or the provider of their choice, right? And how we make money is that we take a percentage of the cost savings that we achieve them. So it's just like an injury attorney, right? Or a contingency attorney.
Mm-hmm.
We do all the work up front, and only if we are successful at achieving savings do we share with it. It's a win all around. The doctor saves money. We only make money if we're saving the doctor money. And if we don't, you owe us nothing, which is the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's
the
great.
other aspect of our service, which is no additional cost, it's just what we do, is the auditing. So every month we look at the statements and make sure that, hey, what we got you stays in place. And that if they're trying to mark up anything, padding interchange rates, adding additional fees, that we take care of that on your behalf. Help with your PCI compliance, right? So when 6 months goes by and they try to increase your pricing by 33%, we're there to flag it down, catch it, and then fix it, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest difference. So as a startup, yes, using us is great because, one, we would help you get the best pricing out of the gates so you don't have to have that poor taste in your mouth a year later when you're paying thousands of dollars in fees you didn't have to. But two, we're making sure that what we got you stays in place, so you really never have to worry about it. From startups perspective, from an existing practice, we have doctors all the time send us their statements. We can't help them because we're not a fit for everybody. It's just how it works, right? But they will call us back 6 months later and say, Matt, this doesn't look right. That 2.3% that you told me was supposed to be my average is now at 3%. I know they increased something here. I don't know where. You know what I mean? So that's the biggest difference. That's where we focus. That's how we operate. I do use the example of when COVID broke out, practices were shut down for 60 days. Hopefully that never happens again. But if it were to, if you're not processing any payments, there are no savings. So you don't owe us anything. There's nothing to share. And again, that's the beauty. And for us, we get doctors ask us all the time, Matt, how do I know how much you're saving me every month? And we'll send you a report that's very black and white that says, here are the fees that you were paying before you engage with our services. Here are those same fees reduced, and now what you're paying after we've negotiated. You know what I mean? You'll get that monthly so you can reconcile everything. And that's it. It's a super black and white service. It's not a sexy service by any stretch of the imagination, but we're numbers. We're numbers people. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's great. And I love to hear, I did not realize that you guys did this on a monthly basis. And it makes me think of a conversation that I just had with one of my startup docs. And again, a lot of times we are going through that back end side of the business, helping them learn to be business owners. And she was like, Jill, I've been really paying attention to my credit cards to the point where she made this beautiful but super elaborate Excel sheet. And she's every month now, I go through it and I plug in all of my fees into my Excel sheet. And she's, you would not believe in this last couple months as I've been doing this, how the fees that they promised me are not what they said they were, the extra fees that have snuck in. And I say this because as docs, you can all do this, but there comes this point where you say, what's your time worth? What's your time worth? Is it worth spending an extra 30 minutes or an hour, whatever it takes to, on top of all the other things that you've got, to be looking at your credit card processing? Or is that something that, you know, that we can put in hands of experts and say, okay, for a nominal fee and a little bit in that savings, I know that I've got that taken care of. So I think that it's great to know that you guys are out there advocating and able to do that work if docs are ready to get that off of their plates.
Yeah, totally. You raise a good point. It's like, what is your time worth? Is your time worth trying to get additional patients in the door to grow your practice, open another office, whatever? Because you can certainly learn this stuff. It's not like information's not out there. It's just, is it worth your time?
Yeah. Yeah. So as we finish up, I know you've already just given us so much information, but I'm wondering if you had maybe what you would consider your top 3 pieces of advice for anybody out there, maybe in negotiating credit card processing fees or anything else that we may have talked about or did not cover.
Yeah, I would say try to get more than one quote with any credit card processing company. So if you talk to one, go talk to 2 others, right? 2, I'm biased, but I would say scrutinize your statements monthly. At the very least, try to do it quarterly or twice a year. And then 3, I don't know if I have a third one. I would always just say when you do scrutinize the statements, try to compare it to other months so that if you see additional fees that may pop up, if it was there before or not. Again, it's like reading another language. One fee could stand for the same thing, but be called something different couple months later, you know what I mean? So it's tough, but those would be the 3 pieces of advice I would give you if you're looking into this more in detail.
Perfect. Awesome. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, if they're like, all right, my time is not worth spending my life on making new spreadsheets and they want your help, how do they get a hold of you? And you're also part of Mary's List as well, correct? So there's some benefit there for anybody out there listening. But how would they get a hold of you and maybe set up their first call with you?
Yeah, they can reach out. They just go to our website. It's merchant.com, right? And you can just submit your information. In the blurb, in the notes when you're submitting this, just say, hey, heard you on Jill Allen's podcast. But yes, we're part of Mary's List. We're part of the AAO. all the regional chapters of the AAL Showman group. So you'll find us in a lot of different places. So reach out, tell us what groups you're affiliated with. That's super helpful. But just ask for Matt. Say, I would like to speak with Matt, and we'll have a conversation. You know what I mean? Consultations are free. The audits of your merchant statements are free. We want to let you know up front what we think we can do for you. Because again, we're not for everybody. And then we'll take it from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for just giving us such good information. And I know that you're going to be getting some calls because I get calls about this all the time. We're constantly talking about it on my side of the business. And it's just good to know that docs have got an advocate out there for them. So as we finish up here, the way I like to finish up Hey Docs is always with a little speed round. Are you ready for the speed round challenge?
Yes. So I looked at the questions. I forgot the questions. So now this is going to come right from the hip. So hopefully I'll do well for this.
Righty. So what is your go-to productivity tool?
Landscaping, getting outside.
Ah, I love it. Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Okay. What was your first job you ever had?
I worked as a laborer at an auto body.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. That's great.
Unique experience.
Yeah, for sure. And then what would you say has had the most tremendous impact on your professional life?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say it's one particular thing, but I would give a shout out to all the businesses that gave us an opportunity at the beginning. I would say that was probably the best thing that's happened is just someone giving you a shot and then you coming through in that opportunity and it working out. So
that's, I love that. And then final question, what's one business skill you think everyone should have?
Communication, 100%. Being able to communicate. If you're a doctor and you're awesome at your craft, that's great, but you also have to put the communication head on, talking to patients. It's almost like sales, right?
Yeah.
I would say communication is number one thing.
Yeah, great. Matt, again, thank you. This was wonderful. I really appreciate you just giving us such good knowledge, good things to put away. And thanks for being on Hey Docs today.
I appreciate it, Jill. Thanks for having me.
All right. See ya. We did it.